Nscn calls ZUF for peace negotiations, a turning point toward Zeliangrong unity. Welcome back to Zeliangrong Media, where we bring you detailed analyses on the evolving dynamics of insurgent movements and peace initiatives in northeast India. In a significant development that could reshape ethnic relations and peace-building efforts across the region, the National Socialist Council of Nagalim, Isakmueva, or Nscn, has reportedly reached out to the Zeliangrong United Front, ZUF, for renewed peace coordination and possible reconciliation. This outreach comes after years of tension and ideological divergence between the two groups, which both claim to represent Naga and Zeliangrong aspirations. The Nscn's call is seen not only as a symbolic gesture, but also as a strategic effort to consolidate Naga factions under one broader peace umbrella at a time when talks with the government of India appear to have slowed. Sources close to both sides indicate that informal communication channels have been established, and preliminary discussions on trust-building measures have begun. The Nscn leadership is believed to have emphasized the need to unify all ethnic-based Naga organizations for a shared political goal, while ZUF has expressed cautious optimism, insisting that any reconciliation must ensure equal recognition for the Zeliangrong identity and their historical homeland. This move has come at a delicate moment when the Zeliangrong United Front itself is engaged in formal peace talks with the government of India. The Nscn's call, therefore, adds another dimension to the ongoing dialogue process. It reflects both the fluidity and the complexity of northeast India's insurgent politics, where shifting alliances, cultural kinship, and territorial aspirations continue to shape negotiations. The ZUF, having emerged in 2011 from discontent over Zeliangrong representation within the larger Naga political discourse, has since carved out a distinct ideological position, emphasizing Zeliangrong unity, development, and autonomy. The latest initiative from Nscn to reach out to ZUF, therefore, could mark a potential turning point, either toward unity under a broader Naga peace framework, or toward a strengthened Zeliangrong-centered political identity within India's evolving federal structure. Zeliangrong United Front holds 7th round of talks with Government of India, renewed push for peace and autonomy. The Zeliangrong United Front was formed in February 2011 with a vision to unify and represent the interests of the Zeem, Liangmai and Rongmei tribes, the three closely related Naga subgroups collectively known as the Zeliangrong. These tribes share historical, cultural and linguistic ties and inhabit parts of Assam, Manipur and Nagaland. The creation of the ZUF stemmed from growing dissatisfaction with how the broader Naga political movement, particularly under the Nscn, treated Zeliangrong aspirations. The founding leaders of ZUF, including late Thuinanang Panmay and other senior figures, envisioned a movement that would assert a distinct political identity for the Zeliangrong within the Naga framework, while safeguarding their traditional homeland and cultural heritage. The early years of the ZUF were marked by internal struggles and armed resistance. The organization engaged in several armed confrontations, both with security forces and rival groups, as it sought to establish its influence across Zeliangrong-inhabited territories in Tamenglong, Nonai and Perin districts. During this time, the group operated primarily from forest bases, surviving on local support and political sympathy from sections of the Zeliangrong population who felt marginalized in the larger Naga cause. The ZUF's stated goal was to secure the unification and development of the Zeliangrong people under one administrative and political structure, which they described as the Zeliangrong homeland. However, the movement faced major internal challenges. Around 2017, a significant factional split emerged when one group decided to join the ceasefire process with the government of India, while another faction, led by the late Joseph Rongmei, opposed any negotiation without clear guarantees on political autonomy. This division weakened the organization's unity and reduced its field strength. Despite this, both factions continue to claim legitimacy as the original ZUF. By 2022, the pro-talks faction led by Ratu Chawang and a mentor had gained formal recognition for initiating peace dialogue with the Indian government. The peace process with ZUF has been gradual and cautious. The Government of India, represented by the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Intelligence Bureau, has maintained that the talks are aimed at a peaceful settlement that addresses local grievances without disturbing the integrity of neighboring states. For the ZUF, the talks symbolize a chance to translate their long struggle into institutional recognition and political stability. The first few rounds of talks revolved around the modalities of the ceasefire, ground rules, and frameworks for mutual trust. Gradually, the discussions began to move toward the ZUF's primary demands: recognition of Zeliangrong identity, development of Zeliangrong areas, protection of traditional land rights, and integration under a single administrative unit. By the time the seventh round of talks convened in 2025, much had changed in the political landscape of northeast India. The broader peace process involving Naga groups had slowed, and issues of tribal autonomy and representation were gaining renewed national attention. Against this backdrop, the seventh round of ZUF talks was seen as more than just another negotiation. It symbolized the persistence of smaller ethnic groups striving for acknowledgement in a region dominated by larger, more organized movements. The meeting was held in New Delhi and was attended by representatives from the Ministry of Home Affairs, the interlocutor for Naga peace talks, and the leadership of the ZUF led by Chairman Ratu Chawang and General Secretary Amenta. According to reports from local and national media, including the Morung Express, Nagaland Post, and Imphal Free Press, the seventh round focused on key proposals that had been refined over the past few years. These included granting a special autonomous district council or territorial council for Zeliangrong areas, increasing developmental funds under the Ministry of DUNER, and strengthening the traditional village authority system. The ZUF negotiators also emphasized the need for an inclusive settlement that takes into account the geographical continuity of Zeliangrong territories spread across 3 states. Their argument centered on the historical fact that the Zeliangrong people were administratively divided by colonial boundaries and state reorganizations, which disrupted their social cohesion. One of the major talking points during this round was the potential framework for development-based autonomy, rather than full territorial reorganization. Sources close to the negotiation process suggested that both sides discussed models similar to the Bodoland Territorial Region and the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, which combine limited legislative powers with enhanced financial control. The ZUF delegation reportedly proposed a model that could unify the Zeliangrong villages under one developmental board, ensuring that projects and resources directly reach their communities without being filtered through multiple state bureaucracies. Observers view this approach as pragmatic, given the complex interstate boundary issues in the region. The Government of India appears keen to encourage solutions within existing state structures while providing socio-economic incentives to groups that renounce violence and participate in governance. For the ZUF, this could mean transitioning from an armed political movement to a socio-political organization involved in community development, youth empowerment, and cultural preservation. Another critical element of the seventh round was the reaffirmation of the ceasefire agreement. Both sides reportedly agreed to extend the ceasefire and strengthen monitoring mechanisms to prevent misunderstandings between the ZUF cadres and security forces. In the past, ceasefire violations had been a source of friction, leading to brief suspensions of trust. However, this time the discussions emphasized coordination between ground commanders and peace monitors. It was also learned that the ZUF leaders requested amnesty and rehabilitation packages for cadres willing to surrender arms and reintegrate into civilian life, including vocational training and small-scale business opportunities. Beyond the technicalities of negotiation, the seventh round represents a psychological breakthrough for the Zeliangrong community. For years, their concerns were overshadowed by the larger Naga political discourse. The ZUF's persistence has now ensured that the Zeliangrong voice is part of India's evolving dialogue on ethnic rights and federalism. The peace process has also inspired other smaller tribal groups to consider dialogue instead of prolonged insurgency. However, the path ahead remains complex. Critics argue that without addressing the question of territorial integration, any arrangement would only be partial. Many Zeliangrong intellectuals and civil society organizations continue to advocate for administrative unification under a single state or union territory, believing that development councils alone cannot fully safeguard their land and identity. On the other hand, political leaders from the 3 states where Zeliangrong people reside, Assam, Manipur and Nagaland, have expressed reservations about any boundary change. This delicate balance requires careful negotiation to avoid interstate tensions. In the broader context of India's Northeast peace architecture, the ZUF Government of India talks symbolize a maturing stage of dialogue-based conflict resolution. From the Mizo Accord of 1986 to the Bodo peace settlement of 2020, the Indian government has repeatedly demonstrated that regional autonomy can be achieved through sustained dialogue and trust building. The inclusion of ZUF in this line of engagement underscores a recognition that no community, however small, should be left outside the peace process. The seventh round of talks also came at a time when socio-political instability in neighboring areas has been intensifying. Ethnic clashes, demands for separate administration, and competition over resources continue to shape the region's future. In this volatile environment, the ZUF's commitment to negotiation rather than confrontation stands as a hopeful model. The group's decision to reaffirm dialogue sends a clear message to other armed movements that peace and development can coexist without compromising identity. According to reports from The Hindu and The Telegraph, the Ministry of Home Affairs has shown openness to accelerating developmental interventions in conflict-affected tribal areas, aligning with the Prime Minister's vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. Officials are reportedly drafting a proposal that integrates the ZUF peace process with ongoing schemes such as the Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Scheme, NESIDS, and the Tribal Sub-Plan. This approach may not provide political autonomy in its purest sense, but it ensures material benefits and social empowerment that could pave the way for long-term reconciliation. The role of the Zeliangrong civil society in supporting these talks has also been crucial. Various community organizations, including the Zeliangrong Body, Zeliangrong Students' Union, and women's associations, have been consistently urging both sides to maintain dialogue. Their appeals highlight the deep fatigue caused by decades of insurgency and militarization. The people on the ground are yearning for a future where their youth can pursue education, jobs, and entrepreneurship without fear or stigma. This growing public sentiment is gradually shaping the tone of the negotiations. Yet, while optimism surrounds the process, observers caution that much depends on implementation. Even the most well-intentioned agreements in the Northeast have faced challenges due to bureaucratic delays, lack of coordination, and political competition. The ZUF's leadership will need to balance grassroots expectations with the pragmatic realities of negotiation. Similarly, the Government of India must ensure that peace accords do not remain mere documents, but translate into visible change in roads, schools, healthcare, and employment. As of 2025, the ZUF continues to maintain its headquarters in Nonai district, where the movement was originally founded. Its armed cadres have reportedly reduced in number, with many undergoing rehabilitation under the supervision of the security forces. The leadership, however, remains firm on protecting Zeliangrong rights. The emphasis on peace does not mean surrender of identity, but rather a redefinition of struggle in democratic terms. In conclusion, the seventh round of peace talks between the Zeliangrong United Front and the Government of India reflects a significant evolution in the politics of dialogue. It marks a transition from armed assertion to political negotiation, from isolation to inclusion. If handled with sincerity and sensitivity, this dialogue could lead to a new chapter of harmony and progress for the Zeliangrong people. This has been Zeliangram Media's special analysis on the Nscn's call for unity with ZUF and the Zeliangrong United Front's seventh round of talks with the Government of India. Stay tuned for more detailed analyses, reports, and narratives from across India's frontier regions. Disclaimer: this analysis is presented by Zeliangram Media for documentary and educational purposes. It is based on publicly available reports and media statements. The views expressed do not represent any government or organization, but serve to promote awareness and understanding of ongoing peace processes in Northeast India. Sources referenced: The Hindu, The Morung Express, The Telegraph, Nagaland Post, Imphal Free Press, Northeast Now, and The Times of India.